Americans are economically ignorant for the most part. And despite all the efforts of all the economists and the think tanks and the foundations and all that, it was just amazing how the whole public, as soon as George Bush threatened another Great Depression, unless we all acquiesce in a bailout of the Wall Street investment bankers, there was barely a peep of protest, wasn't there? And people don't know about it. I've even talked to some. My next door neighbor's brother was one of the guys who got laid off from Lehman Brothers. He was an assistant to the CFO of Lehman Brothers, and I was with him at a holiday party, and he went to Yale, and they taught him. He went to Wall Street after Yale, and they taught him how to make money, but he knows really nothing about economics. Even a Wall Street Lehman Brothers guy. His extent of economic understanding had to do with a few quotations from a book someone gave him to read, written by John Kenneth Galbraith, the socialist. That's all he knew. And I gave a talk at a financial planners convention in Florida about right before Christmas, and the organizer of the talk did the same thing. He was quoting Galbraith as having some kind of solution for the current economic crisis, and he's another Wall Street guy. And so, if you have Wall Street people who are economically ignorant to that extent, the average, Joe and Jane six-pack, it seems kind of hopeless almost as far as economic understanding. And the government, of course, has the ability to snow everybody over with this constant barrage of propaganda about, acquiesce in what we say or else. You might remember reading that Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire mayor of New York City, sued the Fed to find out who got this $350 billion, and the federal courts pretty much gave him one big middle finger, told him to shut up and go home. So even if Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire mayor of New York, is told to go play in the traffic by the Fed, there's no hope for any of us. That's why I'm an advocate of secession. I think it's the only way out. It's the only way out. They'll never let you exert any control over them. This whole episode really proves, doesn't it, who government is really for. One of my articles on Lew Rockwell is entitled "A Nation of Chumps and Suckers." I was in a grocery store one day, and the Washingtonian magazine, the cover story said, "How did we ever get this rich?" ? We be Washingtonians. And the whole thing was story after story about all the $20 million mansions in the D.C. area and things like this. And so I thought, well, we're a nation of chumps and suckers. That's how they got so rich in D.C. We just, a nation of sheep. As I think Andrew Napolitano wrote a book of that title, A Nation of Sheep. So sorry to be so pessimistic and gloomy, but I think that's the way it is. I think so. The guy in the back had a question earlier. Okay. Does he still have a question back there?
I have a problem which I think I share with a lot of people. Every April or so, I send a plea to the federal government asking for my money back because they took it before I even saw it. So I can't even resist that way because, if I resist, I lose the money that I might get back from them. What would you recommend as the means of resistance to the current system?
Well, I don't want to be on the IRS hit list, so I don't resist. I mean, the government has enough guns with which to enforce the income tax. Therefore, you must pay the income tax, and hire a good accountant to find as many legal loopholes as you can. That's what I do. He's well worth his money too. And I'll give you his name if you want. But that's the best you can do for now. That's as far as that goes. I know the late Carl Hess, I think, didn't he? He moved to West Virginia, and he only traded in barter so that he wouldn't have any income, and he wouldn't have to report income tax. He lived for years like that. But I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live in a cave in West Virginia and trade cucumbers for cabbages for the rest of my life. Well, I want to talk about overthrow. That's why I said, there's, look up on the web, Second Vermont Republic. There's a group of real serious people who were, they took a straw poll vote in every town in Vermont on whether Vermont should secede from the Union, and they got a majority vote in every single town in Vermont. The Soviet Union broke up through peaceful secession. About a dozen different states peacefully seceded from the Soviet Union. And that's the only hope I see, because it would totally devolve power from the center. And I really can't see the Obama administration dropping a nuclear bomb on Vermont if they decide to secede. What are they going to do? And so maybe the Bush administration, I could have seen that. But whether that'll happen any day. Thomas Jefferson himself, when he was asked about this, he said he thought the United States would probably become 5 or 6 different republics, and he said we would wish them all well because they will all be our children, is what he said. And so he was no Abe Lincoln. He did not say, we're going to invade and bomb your cities and burn your towns to a smoldering ruin if you secede. He said, we wish you well. You're our political children. And so it is a part of the American history, the tradition of secession. America was founded by the secession from the British Empire, after all. So this idea certainly has been changed since 1865 because it's been associated with slavery and so forth, but it need not be. There were abolitionists in the northern states who advocated seceding from the Union prior to the Civil War. It was the New England Federalists who first plotted to secede, and they thought they had a legitimate right to because they had already fought one war of secession, the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution. And there was, even before the Civil War, there was a advocates of a middle confederacy. They wanted New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland to secede from the Union and create a separate country. There's a whole book on it called The Secession Movement in the Middle States. And everyone hated the New England Yankees at the time, apparently. And the South hated them, and the middle states didn't want to be part of them. And they were the Hamiltonians, in other words, the neo-Hamiltonians by the 1860s. But they won out. We now live in their country. And I guess that was the last question. So thank you very much. I do have a few books for sale here.